Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Rich and you've turned into another episode of Wristwatch Rescue. Today on the bench we've got this beautiful Art Deco Bulova from the late 1940s. Now it comes to me from a 94-year-old gentleman who lives in a small town in northern Iowa. He got it for his high school graduation in 1948 from his parents. And then shortly after he graduated, he joined the Navy. And then he ended up in Korea for all 3 years on a ship. So what we need to do is give this watch a service and find a new sub-seconds hand and find out what else is going on inside. So stay tuned. Joseph Bulova started a jewelry store in 1875, and he started making his own watches. And by the early 20th century, he had built his own plant in Switzerland and imported the watches and sold them out in his jewelry store in New York City. Well, he was a big believer in advertising, so he was one of the first people to advertise on the radio in the 1920s. He was also the very first watch company to have a television ad in 1941. So he did all kinds of promotional items. He even had a contest for the first person that could fly over the Atlantic Ocean to Europe. Now, of course, Charles Lindbergh won the promotion, and they gave him a watch and $1,000, which was a lot back then. Now, this watch, the hour hand, is just sliding around on its own. So we've got some issues with that, and we need to replace that or get it sized better. So what I'm going to do is remove the hands. I'm using this piece of plastic and these two little hand remover levers and just gently plying up the hands. And the plastic is to keep from damaging the dial, because this beautiful dial is one of a kind anymore. Now here's the hand that's loose, so we're going to take that and see what we can do with it. Now that we've got it out of the case, we need to take the dial off. But first I'm going to take this retention ring off. And there's two little screws that screw down tight on pegs on the back of the dial. And that's what holds the dial in place. So once we get these two little screws loose, we can pry the dial up. Oh, this one came off really quick. Now, it is running at the moment, but it hasn't been running very good at all. So what I do is I put the dials in this little protective case along with the hands, so that while I'm working on the watch, the dial of the hands don't get damaged. Now, Bulova was one of the first in the 1950s to come out with an electronic watch. They called it the Accutron. It actually used a tuning fork to split time. They even got it into the Apollo space program. And Apollo 15, Commander David Scott, wore it on the moon when he did his walk. Now I'm taking out the bridge here that holds the pallet fork. And as I took it apart, I noticed something funny. The pivot, the top of the pivot was broken. So what we're going to need to do is replace this. So we're going to have to get a donor or order this part. Bulova actually sold out in 1979 to the Lowe's Corporation. And then again in 2008, Citizen Watches out of Japan bought them. Now they're still a viable company. They're still producing watches today, and they're headquartered in New York as they were back in the day of Joseph Bulova. As I'm taking this trainer wheel bridge off, I see a lot of rust. See that on that center hole there? And then on the top of the center wheel there. So there's some moisture that's gotten into this watch, which is very common because these watches were not sealed as well as watches are today. They weren't anywhere near to being called waterproof, even water resistance. So moisture was really easy for that to get into. You can see a little bit of rust on top of the crown wheel there too. Ooh, and when I took the screw out, there's even more. Not pretty. Goodness, there's a lot more underneath. So we're going to have to clean that up a bit. The cleaning machine should do a good job on this. I can see some rust on that screw over there. So it's a clear sign that water got in like where the stem comes through the case and just slowly eased its way up. And that's part of the reason you saw those spots on the dial. A lot of time moisture will cause the dial to spot like that. But these wheels look pretty good. I'll get the little crazy escape wheel out of there. The ratchet is the next thing to come out. And this is called a ratchet click. What it does is it holds the ratchet wheel from coming unwound after you've wound up the watch. And that little spring is called a click spring. So it's actually very delicate and it can fly a long ways. So with all of these screws out of this barrel bridge, we'll just gently pry up the barrel bridge and see what we've got underneath. Well, a little bit more rust, but not that bad. So we'll clean that rust up and we'll get this thing running. You can see the pinion, sliding pinion is okay. The barrel is not rusted. Now I'm back over on the dial side and we're going to take the keyless works apart. Now this first little piece that comes off is the setting lever spring. And now it holds everything, covers up everything underneath, from the motion works to the keyless works. So when we take this off, you'll be able to see the keyless works a little better. The minute wheel comes off next, and it actually has nothing to do with the minute hand. Why they call it the minute wheel? Who knows? Now the yoke spring, I'm going to kind of gently move it out of there because if I get it out there too quick, it can fly across the room. Now the yoke spring actually puts tension on that yoke, that funny looking bent up piece of metal there that I'm taking out. And then the yoke pushes the sliding pinion back and forth and gives your watch either the setting position or the winding position. And that's accomplished when you pull the crown stem out. Now, the last thing I need to take off here is the setting lever itself. You can see it fall away there. It's got a little rust on it, but it'll clean up nicely, I believe. And then the setting lever post just slides out. And then we're on to removing the mainspring. So what you have to do is gently push down on the outside of the barrel, and then that lid will pop off. Now you want to keep a pair of tweezers on the top because if it comes off too quick, it can hit you right in the face. Not fun. Been there, done that. Then we have the arbor in the middle. Now the arbor is actually what attaches to the mainspring. So as you wind it up, it turns. And then the barrel, in turn, will release its energy as it unwinds. So what I'm going to do is slowly pull this out with my tweezers, just kind of walk it out. Here again, I don't want anything jumping out at me. This looks like it's the original mainspring, so we should be all right. I don't think it looks that bad. Now here's all the pieces and parts to the watch. I've got them laid out here so you can see what a completely disassembled watch looks like. Then I'm going to put every little piece in its own little basket, and the bigger ones in the bigger baskets. And once all these parts are in the baskets, we'll take it out to the cleaning machine. And the cleaning machine actually has 4 steps. It has an ammonia wash, and then it has 2 rinses, and then a drying process. And I'll show you that briefly. Now, I don't put the balance in there or the pallet fork. Of course, that's the broken pallet fork. So we put it into the wash first. Now, I have started a Patreon page. For those of you who are not familiar with Patreon, that's a way for you to support your favorite creators by donation. Mine starts at $4 a month. If you feel free, if you like what you see here, I can always use the support, because what it does is it helps me buy watches and machines to bring these videos to you with. And then the last thing you do is put it in the dryer there. Now we got to put it all back together. I'm going to start by rewinding the mainspring. So I'm going to just gently slide it in there. And as I turn this little tool, the spring will wind up inside that little barrel there. And then once I get it all wound up, I take the post out, and then I just slide my empty barrel over the top. And then I just give it a little push, and voila. There we have a mainspring back in its case. Now I'm putting a little bit of 8200 grease on there. Once I get the arbor in there and connect it to the mainspring, as you can see, there's a little tab on that arbor. Then I'll put the lid back on and just put a little bit of lubrication there on the top so where it turns. Then I've got this little special tool that will pop that lid back on nice and snug. Just give it a little click. And then before I put it into the plate, I'm just going to put another little bit more grease on the plate there. So now the mainspring's all ready to go. As you can see, that rust came off pretty well in the washing process. So the first thing I'm doing is putting this post in, the setting lever post, so I don't forget it. And then I'm putting the main spring bridge in. Here again, a little bit more grease on top of that. Now I'm going to start with the escapement wheel and then work my way back. Now this is the second hand. Okay, that's the sub-second hand. That post goes all the way through, and that little hand that was missing on the other side of the dial, that's what it connects to. And we've got the third wheel going in here. And then here's your center wheel. Now that's going to be the one that the cannon pinion on the other side actually connects to, and the minute wheel is going to connect to. And once I've got everything all lined up, I'll drop this train of wheels bridge down on top, and then I'll gently line up all of the pivots. So there's 3 pivots on the top, and of course they're already in the pivots on the bottom. So what I need to do is just very, very carefully, and this can take a long time, but this one doesn't seem to be doing too bad. Yeah, it's still out of the pivots. There we go. Now, I'm going to put 1 screw in. I like to do this. Put a couple screws in to just kind of hold it, and then, but not tight. See, now they're swinging. See how fast that escape wheel is spinning around? So that just lets you know that you're in the pivots when everything's moving smooth and very quickly like that. So I'll put the rest of the screws in. With everything snug, I can spin the barrel, and you can see how it turns really easily. Now I'm going to put some Mobius 9010 in my little tool here on each top of each one of these pivots. I'll also turn it over and do it to the pivots on the other side of the watch here. With the jewels all oiled, I'm going to put a little bit of grease on top of this stump where the crown wheel goes. Now the crown wheel is what actually winds up the watch. In other words, when you turn the stem, it transfers the power into this wheel, and then it goes over to the ratchet wheel, and then it winds up the mainspring. So that little washer on the inside keeps it from sliding around nice and easily. Now this is actually a reverse screw, because if it was going the other way, it would come loose. With that done, I can move on to the click spring. These are always tricky to get into the groove here. You want to hold that a stick or another pair of tweezers over the back end in case it slips out. It's not going off into the wild. With that done, I can put the ratchet wheel on top. Now the ratchet wheel always has that square hole, because the square hole of that arbor in the mainspring barrel fits right into it. I'm pinching that click spring over so I can fit the click in on its post, because there's a little tab on the bottom of that click post. And then I can screw it down. I'm still holding that click spring over, is what I'm doing here. And then tighten it up, and then I can let go. Now when I twist it, you can see it clicking back there. Now there's nothing stopping the power from running all the way through, but I'm winding it up. What I want to do next is oil the crown jewel on the balance complete. So I like to lay it on this little stand, and then I have a little oiling tool that dispenses just a perfect amount of oil in the form of a drop. And what I do is stretch out the hairspring, slide my tool in there, and then just pull it back and let it go. And it puts a drop of oil in the right place every time. It's a nice little tool. A lot of neat little tools you can get to help you do this hobby. You don't have to have them all at the first. But this, here's the same thing. There's the opposite jewel from that on the balance, where the balance pivot sits in. Use that tool to just oil that jewel. Now here is the new pallet fork. I got a donor watch, and I salvaged it. So what I'm doing is setting it in its pivots. And this is the pallet fork bridge. Sometimes called the cock. Depends on where you're from, I guess. Yeah. And then there's a little screw that holds it all down. Now I can wind the watch up, and if you notice, it's not coming unwound. So now I can see all the power. So here's the moment of truth. The best part of watchmaking is putting this balance back in and seeing if the heart will beat. Once I have the balance set in its pivots, I can give it a spin and see how it works. Oh, nice and smooth. Oh, it looks strong too. That's great. That's what you work for when you do this. Tedious little work, but that's the moment of truth right there. I just drop the screw in its hole and snug it down and make sure it keeps running. Beautiful. Now we're back over on the dial side. And these two little components, one is the sliding pinion and the other is the clutch. And what the clutch does is it turns, and when your watch is in the winding position, those teeth on the outside of that clutch will turn that crown wheel on the other side. So as I drop that in, those teeth go through a hole in the plate there and connect to that wheel that had the rust on it on the other side. And then the sliding pinion, when you want to set the watch, that sliding pinion will be pushed forwards by the yoke. And then when you turn the crown wheel and the stem, it will turn the motion works, which in turn, you can see how those little teeth connected. So I need to put this setting lever on. I put a little grease on the plate there where the setting lever is going to slide, because these are high friction parts. And this blue grease, it's a 9501 Mobius product, and it has the highest friction coefficient. So what I'm doing now is I'm turning the watch over, holding that setting lever with my finger until I can get the threads to start on the dial side there. Or I'm sorry, on the back side. Now you can see how that works. When I pull the stem in and out, Now, I did get a little too much grease, so I took a little off. That blue putty is called Deco, and it's great for removing grease in small parts. I'm going to put a tad bit of it there because the yoke will actually rub against that setting spring. So every time you pull the stem in and out, those two are going to be rubbing against each other. So that's why I'm leaving that blue grease there to keep the friction down. Because if you don't do that, the metal shavings eventually will come off of the parts and get into the rest of the watch and gum it up. This is the yoke spring that I'm putting in here. And here again, I'm using that yellow or orange stick to hold that down in case it decides to go the other direction that it's supposed to. And we're going to put a little 90-10 on the minute wheel post and on the cannon pinion post. And this is your cannon pinion. Now this one wasn't friction fitted. Normally they snap on. That one's just sitting there. Now you can see when I'm winding up the watch, those are the parts that are going to move. And then here's that setting lever spring with that cover plate. I lightly put one screw in. I'm going to put a little bit more blue grease over here with these two parts because this is an easy part to wear down right there. So that little spring that you see there with those two notches on the end, when you pull the stem out, that's what gives you the click, as you can see here. Click, is setting the hands, then you push it in, the other click, and that's winding the watch. Now this is known as the hour hand. So the hour wheel on the dial side will actually connect to that. Now to hold it down, it's not friction fitted or anything. These little brass dial rings or washers push down on it from the dial. So we've got it all back together. Let's see how it runs. Now this is a little tool that helps me tell you how healthy it is. It's called a multifunction time grapher. Now that rate is how many seconds plus or minus it is. 11 to 19, that's not bad. The amplitude's really low. I should probably put a new mainspring in there, but I didn't. But the beat arrow is excellent. Anything below 1 is great. With that done, I'm going to put the dial back on. That patina on that dial is incredible. And then I'm tightening those little screws into those feet. Now this is a new watch hand I got off of the donor watch. Let's see if it snug fits like it should. Now I'm not using my watch setting hands tool because I wanted to get a good picture of this for you guys. There we go. It's turning nicely. Now I'm going to take it, run it up to midnight, and then I'm going to put the minute hand on. And I'm going to line it up perfectly so that it'll be midnight when I push it down. There we go. Nice. Now I'm going to run it around, make sure nothing is catching, and make sure the hands are all pointing at the right time. Now this is the little sweep seconds hand. They call it a sub-seconds because it's not in the center with the hour and the minute hand. This is before they had invented that, or older technology. I mean, there was watches the time that this one was made that were doing that, but they weren't doing it on the Bulova one at the time. Now I'm going to drop it back down into this little shell on the bottom that holds the bottom of it. Then I'm going to put this beautiful Art Deco case on top. Now I've buffed up the crystal and I've shined up the gold. I didn't put the gold in the buffer because I wanted it's only gold plated. And I'm just going to pressure fit it down. And then just snap it. There we go. And there's one beautiful watch. I mean, the Art Deco style was, there actually has a resurrection of these watches these days. But I can't wait for Ron, the owner of this watch, to get this and enjoy it, because it's been a beautiful watch to work on. And he wanted a nice brown leather band, so I found one for him here. So as always, I'll see you on the next one.